there's always things to do. You know, I always tell people, you dream it, let's do it. And I'm so dead serious with that. The CannaBoss Babes, before anything else, is an entrepreneurial support platform. If anyone has an idea for something, let's do it. And even more so if it gives something a voice.
Hi everyone, welcome to United Cannabis Club News. My name is Angelica. I'm the founder of United Cannabis Club nonprofit organization. Today is a special episode. I'm so excited. We have a few guests today. Ishqa Hillman. She's the founder of CannABoss Babes. And today we're going to talk to her all about her organization and what she's doing for women in the weed industry and how we can just keep the conversation going and really collaborate with other women in this space. So I'm excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
I've been watching all of your social medias and you're just like really inspiring to watch. Like I saw you on the Cannabis Legalization News channel.
Yeah.
That's a huge show on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's really grown. You know, I think I feel like we all kind of started around the same time and went to different platforms, and that's one that's just really taken off on YouTube. And it's exciting to see because that shows how many people are really interested in learning about legalization of this plant. So
yeah, definitely. When we launched our channel, you know, we really wanted to do our research on who was doing what on YouTube specifically because of all the censorship that's happening and, you know, just the way that they actually report. They seem to be doing very well, luckily flying under the radar of the YouTube gods. And
oh, well, YouTube changed their policy. I forget when exactly it was. It was around the same time that there was something else going on. So it was really quiet under the radar. I believe it was actually around the anniversary of BLM this summer. And so they actually changed their policies to be more forgiving on cannabis. So there was like an official policy change that occurred, but it's still been somewhat recent.
You seem to love the platform Instagram.
It's where we started, and rather than managing multiple platforms, we're on it for now. Although in January we are going live audience. So that will be a whole new platform.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Where are you going to record that?
We're looking at a few studios. The front runner right now is Cannabis Capital in Los Alamitos.
So are you going to shift your format to be more like a live talk show kind of thing?
I mean, yes, we always kind of imagined it being like the View for cannabis, so that's really what we're after. I want to get a lot of different voices, a lot of representation. That's why everyone's a babe. We will be keeping the IG, and we will be keeping it one show a day, Monday through Friday, although Wednesdays we smoke weed, so hey, we're here doing other things. But we're going to bring on other hosts from other parts of the country because the conversation surrounding legalization is really very much needed there. And also for other people like us who are advocates in the space that want to know, hey, where is it that help is needed? So, so we've been talking to a few people and, we're excited about the new lineup.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And have you announced this anywhere, or is this an exclusive?
I've made some mention to it in a couple of my lives, but never this is the first. This is what the plan is. We're rolling out here another exclusive. I've not really mentioned it on air, is that we're using December to take a tolerance break from Instagram. We're currently in week 85 of production. I'm tired. I want a break. So I've decided, before we go in live, launch the live audience in January, we'll take a little break in December and also just really behind the scenes make sure that we're tight as a group with these new hosts and that they're very comfortable and confident because they'll be carrying the show on IG on their own. Breezy and I don't really plan to be there except every once in a while.
Wow, that's so exciting.
We're growing.
I don't think I've even heard of a live audience cannabis show at this point.
Cannabis Capital has a couple other shows that are live audience. They have their comedy night. They also do Hijinks with Adam Ill and Angela Mazzanti. And that one is now live audience as well for a couple months. But yeah, I'm really excited. It'll be the first of its kind.
So can you talk a little bit about like which hosts you have signed on, or is it all secret yet?
No, I mean it'll be Breezy and I right now. We've definitely talked to a couple other people. There's another woman who actually was there when we founded the CannaBoss Babes. Her name is Lisa Starma. She had our first CannaBoss baby this year, so she's a new mother, first child. And so we're hoping that she'll be coming back as well. We're really excited to have her. And then we have a lot of really great guests. So, Tyler Therapy has definitely said she's there. She's on. My Colby cat is the sweetest ever. I've just been really blessed with building a lot of relationships in the industry, both on the influencer side and on the business side. And so I wanted to showcase everybody. I want us to use it as an opportunity to educate and to build community. And that's really what CannaBoss Babes has always been about.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you guys have been around for a couple of years. I was seeing you talk on Cannabis Legalization News channel, and you guys seem to really have the ball rolling. So I'm excited for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love that you guys are super local. We're here in Long Beach. Obviously we want the laws to change throughout the United States, but as a advocate for marijuana, I think the best thing you could do is really start in your own backyard, right? Because it's like where most of your resources are.
Yeah.
So when I found you, and then I was like, no way, she's like here in Los Alamitos, which is literally like a suburb.
Oh, I'm in Long Beach.
Yeah?
I live 7th and Redondo. I've been here I've been a resident of Long Beach for the better part of the last 25 years.
Oh, that's so
awesome. So my daughter's gone to all the schools here. She's just finished at Long Beach City College. She was at Wilson before that. Yeah, Long Beach is home. Too. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He graduated from Wilson in 2019, like 2 years ago.
Okay. So
all right.
I think my daughter would have been a little before that, but yeah, they probably know each other. That's funny.
Yeah,
okay.
That's so funny.
So Long Beach, big city, small community, right?
Yeah.
Like I love that about Long Beach. I think that's why we've had so much progress here, where other cities are still really trying to work on educating their local city councils and assembly people.
Yeah.
The LBCA has been here for 13 years. I'm very active with the LBCA. I started as a member and then started as a volunteer and then have been a member now for over a year. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I think Long Beach is really setting the precedence for a lot of other cities to take notice as far as, working alongside the city and the community and the citizens of Long Beach, because it all comes down to business and commerce within the industry. And that's one great thing about Long Beach definitely is the LBCA.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple of their events. Were you at the event they did in LA with Too Short?
Yes.
Like a month ago?
Yes.
That's so funny, because that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, maybe I saw you there because I was there.
Oh, yeah. No, that was a huge event. It was really great in partnership with the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce and LA Normal. There were a lot of people there. It was a great event, lots of great performers, and just, I really enjoy that because it's a great way to go and see the decision makers at a lot of these companies in a more relaxed environment where you can really just get to know them. Yeah. And cannabis is funny. There's a lot of distrust, and yet people are still very open.
So for people who aren't from Long Beach, can you talk about the LBCA and what kind of work you've done in the last year? Oh, I would love to. My LBCA. That's really where I first, it was at one of their events that I first found out we have an endocannabinoid system. And so I had been using for a few years already to help treat some severe social anxiety I had. And when I went, it was just this magical time of I had just resigned from my job after 7 years in growing this business to go do business consulting and work in juvenile halls. And so that was the plan. And here I am after work one night with an old employee of mine, and we find out there's an endocannabinoid system,
and I was just like instantly pissed off and like, I have to get involved. There has to be something we can do. People need to know this. You know, when I was in my youth, I was in a lot of juvenile halls and homeless and different things up in the Bay Area. So, you know, I just always thinking of like everyone that got left behind and that's still locked up and didn't have the same opportunities that I did in my group home. Last group home, the first few. And then all the people like me where I wasn't at that current moment in my life, which was in a very much a gilded cage, right? Like I had climbed the corporate ladder. I was making good money. My daughter was a first runner-up Miss Teen Long Beach. Like, you know, we're doing all these things, making all these moves, and yet I'm still really forced into a life that's not always comfortable. And what's acceptable is drinking at company events, but smoking's not. And you can't talk about smoking even though it's legal, but like they'll buy you shots all night long. And so knowing it's a medicine, and also that last year really struggling with traveling a lot and managing increasing responsibility, and then going to the doctor and going, hey, I think I need something to help handle my stress and anxiety. Cannabis not being an option, but opioids are. And taking them and having the worst reaction to them, like wanting to climb the walls of my office 3 days later. Wow. Like, so just, you know, when, so finding out, hey, we have an endocannabinoid system, this plant actually is here to help us. It helps us manage our stress and anxiety, rather than forcing myself into that cage and into that maze of how things should be. Like, you know, it's freeing. It was really freeing. So.
Yeah, that's so crazy. I'm glad that you were able to, you know, discover the benefits and the endocannabinoid system. It's very huge, and thank you so much for sharing your story, especially about social anxiety, right? And I think a lot of people, you know, it's great that we are speaking more and more about mental health these days. It's more accepted to talk about, and I think really what we need to keep pushing for is, you know, how weed is so much better than being on any sort of prescription pills.
I mean, not any. So I had to be really careful with that in the last 2 years too, in all these interviews, because there's a lot of young people who because of our cannabis space think, oh, I'm going to get off all of my medication, and that's not always a healthy decision either. So, you know, what's the most important thing and what we need to fight for is making sure that we do get federal legalization, so that our doctors get the education and the support so that they can treat medically patients who can benefit from this plant. That's really what's needed.
And it's interesting too, I think a lot of people come to cannabis specifically after having a bad experience with opioid medication. Yeah. I know I found out I'm allergic to opioid medication after a surgery I had when I was 18. They prescribed me. You know, a lot of people, that's how they come to it initially, and that's how they find out about your endocannabinoid system and how you can maintain homeostasis using the plant, versus, you know, something that's going to destroy your liver and make you throw up and
rewire your brain and rewire your brain the way that it was made intentionally, like we're here with intention, every part of our being.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so
it's great that you were, you know, able to look for other options. I know I have personally so many family members who, because of the stigma, you know, they don't want to even try it, even though they have medical issues and health issues that potentially could be alleviated, but that's why we still have a lot of work to do, right?
And that's the education, and that's really where it is. And, you know, even working with the OC task force last year and going to different city councils in Orange County, because of course they only have Santa Ana that has legal dispensaries there in the whole county. So so going to city councils and being able to advocate and speak on behalf of even just adding it to the vote, right, for the cities and letting the people speak for it. It was very evident that the communities and the cities that were protesting so loudly against it was they lack education in their language. It's a lot of the Hispanic and Asian communities that come out and speak against cannabis at city council meetings. And I think it's because they lack education. They still have all that fear and stigma. And as people of color may have even had personal experiences that reinforce that, right? Yeah. So that happens a lot. but then also lack education in their language to even just be able to share with other people.
Right. That's where intersectionality becomes, very evident. It's not just like cannabis and not cannabis. There are other issues in race and class and gender all intersect here.
Yeah.
And
cannabis
that's fascinating.
touches everything.
It does touch everything, and it's affected and it affects other people as well.
Yeah.
And something that I always thought is interesting is the cannabis plant is indigenous to Asia. Like, people in the Asian and Middle East countries have been using that plant religiously and medically for thousands of years. And then colonization happens, and all of a sudden, it's become demonized. And
it fascinates me.
It is fascinating.
It's a dream of mine to be able to travel the globe and really uncover the root of the stigma in each country. I think just like at what point in time, what story was told, and then what the effect was, on many levels, right? On a cultural level, on a spiritual level, on a medical level, as to what then happened to the people. Because we can see in this country, before I knew about cannabis or any of this about cannabis, right? I used to sit there and I go, gosh, there's been like all these generations of families that have been impacted by these drugs, right? By opioids, by crack, by meth, by things that we know now our government feeds to certain communities. So all these generations of, and then being punished and incarcerated for it. And so all these broken homes and generationally, and that's where we now have these terms like generational curse, right? Yeah. That we talk about. And so it really is part of the generational curse that we have to break is the lies about this plant and why it's on this planet with us.
Definitely. I think just as much education, and the more we talk about it, and the more and more people that are willing to step up and kind of guide the way, such as, your organization that you have, and that you're going to be creating more content, and it's just going to help to educate more and more people. Yeah. Is there anything else, we need to know about what you're doing with CannaBoss Babes?
Yeah, what is CannaBoss Babe? When did you start? Why did you start?
So the CannaBoss Babes actually started almost 2 years ago now, and it started because I was working as a consultant, right? I left my job. I was going to be a consultant, so I was still doing that. I ended up meeting a lot of women in cannabis and meeting with them individually. And I thought it was an interesting thing because here I am new to the space and feeling so new to the space. Like everyone else knows each other and and I'm finding myself having these individual one-on-ones with these people who are, frustrated. There's a boys club. They have no support. They don't know how to do it. Like, how do I, the typical things that we have in every industry as women, really. But in cannabis, what I found interesting was the challenges to the business, right? You can't get funding. You can't market through traditional resources. How you grow your business is so limited. And then the overhead, oh my gosh, the tax alone is more than what overhead is, or about what overhead is on most other businesses. And so how do you operate in such a small margin? So, I grow businesses, so it's interesting to me. I was like, oh, I like a challenge accepted. But then also what I found was that the women really needed each other. And so I'd have someone I'm working with who's an amazing photographer, and I'm working with an influencer who needs more content. Put them together. And it really was just about finding everybody and putting them together. And then it became about, well, let's do an event and showcase these amazing women and what they're making and what they're creating and how and so we did events through February 29th, 2020.
Before the shutdown.
Right before. That was the date of our last one. And then March 16th was when we were like, there's a shutdown, but I couldn't stop the connections. The connections were powerful. So that's when we went live.
And that's what you started doing, the 3 lives a day?
And oh no, that was 5 to 6 a day at first, the first couple weeks. Just
3 is just like insane to me, but you're like, nah.
3 was cutting it down. 3 felt very sane after the first couple weeks.
So do you smoke during your lives?
Oh yeah.
How did you smoke 5 times a day while on live? Like, did you?
Oh, so It's really funny.
I want to know.
So it's really funny. I think me being like coming from corporate and doing that for so long and just smoking in the evenings, like when I first entered the space, Breezy Puffs like I had my first dab with her. Like I had never even dabbed before. Oh, nice. Yeah. So 2 years ago I had like my first dab.
You're a co-founder, right?
Is. Okay. Well, because I was working with her. So she was one of my clients. And there were mean girls. And they started bullying her when I was over at her house. And it was her and Lisa and I. And I was like, you know, at the time I was, 42? So I was like, who has time for this shit? Like, I don't know if I can say that, but like, who has time for that? Like, we are CannaBoss babes. Nobody has time for this drama. And like, what is going on? And they're like threatening to shut down your Instagram account if you don't unfollow this other person. And it just is like gangster mafia mean girls. And I didn't understand it. I thought it was very weird. There was a lot of weird behavior going on where it was either women against men or women turning against women. And all of it's weird. I'm grown. My child's grown. Like, we grown. So at that point, that's when we were like, okay, well, we're CannaBoss babes and we're going to create a safe space for other people because it was happening to a lot of other women. Mm-hmm. And I was like,
can see that.
And if that's your crowd and you're a cannabis user and you're afraid of being alone again, because as women who use cannabis, until recently, you hide it in the closet. You don't tell anybody. You barely tell your friends if you tell your friends. Mm-hmm. And so it's lonely.
Yeah, I mean, the best conversations I have really are on cannabis. And you're right, though. It really is with other people that are familiar and they know you smoke already, right? And I always want to have conversations with my family because it's such a joy to, like, you know, because you're feeling so good and, like, you can just, but I don't know how my family feels if they're on the other phone and I'm just so happy and just so interested, and then they probably realize at the end of the conversation, like, I think she was high.
So what?
But it's like when I want to call people, that's when I get talkative too. It's like,
I think that's good. You're you're having a heightened experience. You're wanting to connect.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of the natural thing of the plant too, is that it reminds us we're here to connect. Yeah, so ever since I was little, I always was like, one planet, billions of people. Why does everyone get more like on themselves and not connecting when we have everything we need?
Well, I think it's intentional, right? I think
it absolutely
as a
is.
Society, like coming from an individualist society, if we were more collective, you know, there are certain people who don't want us that way, and so they do it on purpose.
There's no need for money. There's no need.
Pretty deep.
There's no
not to be like a conspiracy theorist here, but
it's not.
Yeah, no,
I've
they do it
talked about that
on
many
purpose.
times. When you have as many conversations with as many people as I have, you see certain things repeated over and over and over again, and you also understand, like, there's no need for currency. If I don't have to pay you because you're going to do this because we're going to exchange and barter, then there's no need for currency. If there's no need for currency, then there's not better than worse than, right? Like, there's not a 1%.
The hierarchy is very important when it comes to maintaining the status quo, and, you know, in order to live the way that some people live, other people have to have nothing.
Right.
And they like it that way, and it's absolutely on
Well,
purpose.
that's why the American dream was always a lie.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that we even have enough space for all those homes, all that, like, everything that they promised everybody and what they wanted to work.
There are enough empty houses in this country to house every unhoused person. But if they have,
however, it was never designed that way.
Oh no, yeah.
It was always a dream. Right.
It's always a flaw of the system here.
Well, and it also was a marketing ploy. So that's what I look at, is the American dream was when we started this whole way of living too, of this marketing ploy of, this is how you should look, this is what you should buy. By the way, we weren't purchasing clothing as disposably until the idea of the American dream and the idea of these department stores. You know, right? Like, we had probably a dozen outfits if we were really well off, and we wore them for like the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. You know,
and it's just couldn't sew it back together anymore.
So this whole disposable consumerism is a result of that, and it's to get people working so hard that if you aren't living the dream, then you aren't doing enough, and that's really impacted our mental health too. And so I look at I look at around the same time that dream was introduced was the same time cannabis was removed from our ecosystem.
Yeah,
right?
You used to be able to purchase cannabis from a doctor in order to treat your headache, and there was also like arsenic in your medication, all kinds of crazy things, but cannabis itself didn't become illegal in the United States until not even 100 years ago.
I think that the reason why cannabis was removed is because it allows us to be in tune with who we are, our higher self, and that we won't just follow the status quo as easily.
A lot of people think that. Definitely.
I think that of all the different interviews and all the different history that I've done and the way that this plant has even been removed from our history.
Well, people are substance users every single day. Sugar is incredibly addictive as a drug. Caffeine, you can go to a Starbucks.
Sugar in the 1500s, they would like do they would treat it like it was Coke. Like they would shave it off a small little thing and be like, "Oh my God, can I have some?" And like seriously, it's a trip. And when you look at that and you look at how it is, it's in absolutely everything.
People use drugs every single day, but it just is about control. They want to control which drugs you use, and the fact that people of color were using cannabis and it was helping them and they weren't purchasing pharmaceuticals, that was a no.
Yeah, there's so many different ways we could go back and see how laws have impacted marijuana and the stigmas and the hidden agendas, and how ultimately our health can really benefit from this plant. And I'm so happy that the world is changing and the perspectives are changing and more women are involved in these conversations. Just 100 years ago we couldn't even vote, so now we're leading the conversations, and I think that's such a great direction. I think it's such a great time to be alive. I mean, it's the best of times and it could be the worst of times, hopefully our planet will still be here in 50 years.
I mean, that's up to us, right?
I mean,
that's
it'll
up
be
to
here,
us
but
every
will
day.
we be here to live on it?
Right.
That's the question.
I mean, it's, there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, I can talk about 50 million things, and so I was thinking about, I was like, I should have asked, I thought about it, I was like, oh, maybe I should ask, like, what direction, so I can just have that, but, like, I can go on anything. So,
I love that.
And I also have a nonprofit.
And I wanted you just to talk, too. I was like,
yeah.
I just want her to just tell us what she knows, and I really wanted to hear what you have to say.
Well, and we have a nonprofit too. So Pam Chodaswati, who also runs the LBCA, and I have a nonprofit pack together.
Oh, wow.
So like we just did a harvest fest at the MacArthur Park this last weekend and a resource fair. So I do a lot of things with that too.
Yes.
And along with the Social Impact Center. So it's just
she's so involved in the community. Is the perfect person to have on our show today. I'm so excited. We're just getting better and better guests on this show. I want to ask you too something about, you just said the harvest. What was it? The
Harvest Fest. Yeah.
I saw one of your videos talking about Thanksgiving.
Oh, we did that last year. Yeah, that was fun.
Is that going to be happening again? Because we're in November.
It's a good idea. The babes and I hadn't really talked about it because, like I said, we're kind of more preparing for like winding down for December and then with the big comeback in January. But yeah, I'm sure we probably could put together a few recipes for everybody.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving was a lot of fun.
It should be a good one this year. You can't really go wrong with all kinds of food.
I mean, I always have a Thanksgiving. Like, that's always going to be a thing. I had a dank Mother's Day too, actually. My daughter and I have had a tradition for quite a while now that she makes chocolate croissants. So we get them from Trader Joe's. You let them rise overnight and put them in the oven. Well, this year I thought, that's cute. I woke up earlier than her in the morning and I was like, there they are on the stove. And I was like, I have some medicated chocolate. Let's see how that is. Ooh, I only put like 10 milligrams in each one of those things. It felt like 50. I took the biggest nap. So I was like, but it had to have been decarbed, right? So like if it's heated again, does that happen again? And can it increase? I've been learning it can.
Really?
Wow.
I didn't know that.
We are supposed to have a chef, Jeff 420. He's supposed to be on our show, so I'm sure he could tell us more about that, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you cook with cannabis a lot?
I guess so. Hadn't really thought about it until now. Yeah, I mean, I have a medicated truffle oil that I've really been enjoying lately.
Nice.
I have a medicated honey I'll put in my tea. Cannade, Hash Nectar, Cannabis, all great brands for that as well.
Is your Thanksgiving event usually like a little one of those bougie infused dinner parties?
So last year it was actually a little a DIY video of each of the babes and a recipe that they made. So yeah, we'll see. But with weed, yeah,
okay.
Everything was infused.
Okay.
Yeah, we used a multitude of different products for it. We knew what we kind of had in advance, and then had different recipes. So we used Shuggies, which is medicated sugar. So I used that for my famous
I get some of that for my coffee. I am more of an edible person as well. I was telling her that too. Yeah. I have my little dose. I'm fine with one gummy.
Okay.
The 10 milligrams, I'm good. If I'm like working out, or I just started experimenting of having a gummy while I work, which I never was. I never did that before. I always felt like weed was something I would use to wind down, like on a Friday night. It was like my glass of wine. But now I feel like, since I've been experimenting more with like tinctures and stuff, and like I feel like, okay, I can be productive. The other time I was like literally you like whistling while you work.
That's what's happened with me.
I was doing all my research and I actually got a lot of stuff done. I surprised myself.
Yeah, depends on the strain, depends on the product, depends on what you're doing.
Yes.
But 400 milligrams, I can do that and get some stuff done.
400?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm not even near that.
Yeah, I think
I didn't think so, but Breezy Puffs is the one who's taught me that I can, because she's like she'll sit there and eat 1,000 milligram brownie. She says she doesn't do it all at once, but I'm like, if you eat it all within an hour, that's a win. So
I'm like a 20 milligram max. I'll be a microdoser, I suppose. I don't really consider that a microdose, but I guess compared to you, like, absolutely.
Yeah, no, there's some stories.
Let's tell us some stories.
God. I feel like I've always been blessed. To have gone through the different experiences that I've done, and to be standing here now and talking about them, and to, have so many people be so surprised at what I've gone through. That was kind of the goal, right? When you go through trauma, my goal was to have as normal a life as possible. I watched Nick at Night growing up, Donna Reed, and I was like, that works.
So did you always have that drive? You were like, I know, even though I have these, not the best circumstances while you were living through that, did you know
As an adult, I knew I'd have more control as an adult. And when you look at people who are incarcerated, because of the work now, of course, has led to not the juvenile halls that I thought, because now I'm in cannabis. So how do you go and approach it? Hey, juvie, I'm doing all this cannabis, like my earrings, but I want to come talk to the youth, right? So that's not really what I've been doing. What I have been doing, though, is working with a social impact center and National Expungement Week. And so this is my second year actually working a big national expungement thing, and
that's so cool.
And through that, at the beginning of the year, I was able to train through a program they teach in some of the prisons, not quite all of them, but it's called GOGI, and it's going out by going in, and it's really it's using some physicality and using your own thoughts to really help reinforce positive beliefs about yourself and what you're capable of doing. Because a lot of these people just aren't even exposed to that. And it's funny, right? Because when I wanted to leave the job and do the business consulting in juvenile halls, the juvenile halls was to be able to let people know at that young age, hey, you might be thinking this, but let me tell you it's really that. And it's really just sharing the perspectives in order to realize you're here for more.
Yeah, I think especially when you're young and impressionable and malleable, sometimes it really only takes one person to change your entire perspective.
That is
so true.
And it can't be saving everybody. and maybe it's not even now, and it's funny because I used to call it like the mustard seeds, but now I'm like, I just plant little cannabis seeds everywhere because, you know, like, and it really is, when you look at it that way, you have to understand that when you give a seed to somebody, whatever kind of seed it is, it's up to them whether they plant it. It's up to them whether, so if your job is just to go and give seeds and plant them, like, you can't be responsible for what happens next. That has to be the individual journey. So, you know, but that's it. That's what this show is about. That's what all of this is really connecting, because I believe this plant, like, connects us. It connects us to our purpose. It helps when we slow down and we breathe, we can actually have that creative space to know what we're here for.
Yeah.
So how did you make that transition from working with juvenile centers to working in cannabis?
So I never ended up actually working with the juvenile centers. I ended up just working in cannabis, and then that led to working with people who are incarcerated and formerly incarcerated. Okay. So I haven't hit the juvies yet. Not yet. But I've had some opportunities open up, and right now it's more of a timing thing than anything, but I'm not afraid to hit them up about the cannabis. Tell me it's not. It's legal here in California. We're working here in California. There are a lot of youth who last year during the beginning of the pandemic, they actually made a lot of reforms to the juvenile system statewide, where they're not putting them in juvenile hall so much, but that does mean that more group homes are needed and more community-based resources for these children who don't have the same support systems at home as a lot of stereotypical normative families would like to believe. Like, even talking to my daughter's high school a few years ago, because of course, you know, and you know this too, right? Mm-hmm. We've had shooting drills now and shooting fears when we send our children to school. And that's something our children now have to worry about, where we didn't. And
did you never have shooting drills at your school growing up?
No.
When did you graduate from high school? Because your shoes.
I'm pretty young.
Well, you
like,
did.
I grew
Columbine.
up with,
No,
with
after
that.
Columbine, I think that.
I know you probably.
I think Columbine was the first one that kind of triggered that and kicked that off. I don't know if you remember that, but I think that. But before that, yeah, I graduated in '96, so we didn't have to worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I graduated in '97.
Yeah, okay.
And I love saying that because I sound so old. I'm like, I graduated in 1997.
Oh, I'm so proud of it.
I love saying it.
Yeah, I have a almost 21-year-old at home.
Me too.
Good too.
Well, I experienced the trauma of school shooting drills, let me tell you. Yeah. It is the worst.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it sucks.
Sending my daughter to school broke my heart. For a lot of reasons. One, single mom. Was single mom since I was 2 months pregnant. So single mom going to those from preschool. So excited to get my daughter in a preschool. Oh, there's a Mother's Day tea. I'm going to go and make some friends. They were so mean.
Yeah.
Why are married women so mean?
It's because nobody really matures past high school, maybe.
You know, they say people stop maturing at a certain traumatic event in their life.
Absolutely.
So,
but I think a lot of people never experience trauma at all.
And some people don't.
And so they don't know how to cope when it happens. Yeah. And they're older.
I just, like, the whole thing that we're taught, though, as women to be threatened by each other, the masculine competitive thing is a masculine competitive thing. I think it's very weird when women put it on, but that's another societal thing, right? And again, the American dream teaches scarcity and only certain people can have it. And if you know, like, so it's just a mental health thing too. And again, this plant, like, you smoke some weed with somebody, you buddies for life.
Yes,
life,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's what it's about. And so I think that's also why this plant was taken. I don't think this whole experiment of the American dream would have worked if we had been smoking weed all the whole time, because someone would have called it bullshit.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I didn't even think about how that all ties into, you know, the way the United States is put together.
I mean, a Monday through Friday, 40-hour work week. Who decided that and why?
I know who, like, we know. We definitely know who decided that. And it's fascinating. A lot of people are saying that right now we're going through like an equally large labor movement compared to the one that was, asking for the 40-hour work week. Mm-hmm. And people now are saying, we work 40 hours a week and productivity has skyrocketed and wages have stagnated.
Yeah.
And then now we're even seeing, like, in a few states, they are adjusting child labor laws so that children can be exploited for longer and for less pay instead of bringing up adult wages or just wages in general. Like, you shouldn't be paid differently depending on how old you are. But I think it's very interesting because the United States used to mandate people grow hemp as a law, and now just to see, you know, the change in, I think, labor laws, that's part of a huge education lack. And I went to public school in California.
Oh, yeah.
Labor in history is not a thing. They do not talk about it. I had to, you know, look that up myself. And I think the more people, especially in the cannabis industry, there's very few unions here, you know, and there are a lot of people, especially women and minorities, who are taken advantage, just like any other industry.
Yeah. There was an article the other day on LinkedIn that a woman wrote about her experience at MJ BizCon and how completely sexist it is still.
This past year.
I
like
need
last week.
to hear
Just a couple
story.
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll send it to you. Absolutely. It was
cannot-
brilliant. I believe her name is Rachel Garrett. I might have that
Did you
wrong.
go?
I'm not sure. I did not go this year.
I didn't go either.
I never get FOMO. Like, I never get FOMO. I'm always I'm divine alignment and timing in all things. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
There's always
I had
another
the
event.
worst FOMO.
You
I
did?
had the worst. I was just like,
I did
I'm
want to go too.
supposed
I
to
tried
be
to get
there.
free tickets.
I'm supposed to be there.
But
I
couldn't.
yeah.
They didn't approve.
It was a last minute thing. I've recently started working with a new minority owned lab down in Santa Ana. He's actually the youngest lab owner in the state too. So he's really cute. You'll have to,
awesome.
if you ever want to come down to the lab, let me know.
Hey,
It's beautiful.
we can go right now.
That sounds good. We can do that. We can arrange that. It's a beautiful lab. He's worked really hard to do this. It's taken him, you know the story. Anyone that goes into cannabis, it never is as fast to open as you imagine.
Right.
I
long
really
process.
that's a whole other video, you guys. But yeah, so he definitely had a rough start, and doors have been open, fully DCC credentialed, everything, and with the most recent standards. So what I found, like, this whole lab industry is very interesting. What I found out is that when California passed Prop 64, because testing was required of all the products, anyone who had a testing lab, they basically just gave licenses to, because they needed the labs, because they had so much product that they had to get on the shelves that had to be tested, that it was like, you get a license and you get a license, just get the work done, right? Get us the results, make sure it's safe. And they don't even really care about THC and stuff as much as they do, like, the mold and the pesticides. Like, they really are more concerned with the safety of it. But the standards weren't necessarily in place as if you were a lab now being opened. Now we've learned a few things over the last couple of years, a lot of things. But yeah, so it's exciting.
Shout out to him, the youngest.
Oh yes,
lab
yes.
owner in the state of California.
Kevin Brambot, yeah.
That's
He
awesome.
he is.
And he's a minority.
amazing. He is. Yes,
That's
he
so
is.
cool. Love
So
that.
we're really excited. We just added him. He's been added to CannaClusive's Inclusive Base. So that is a big database of different minority-owned cannabis businesses all across the country. And he is one of 2 labs on that entire list. The other lab's a lab up in Washington that is Native American-owned. So that was really exciting. We're here. We're ready to serve the community. So
Yes.
I want to get his story out a little bit too. He's just
Yeah.
awesome, and what he's building there. And there's AB 45 just passed in California, so now all the hemp and CBD is going to have to be tested too, and there's going to be a lot of business.
So much regulation is happening.
Yeah.
So we can continue to thrive. This industry, it needs regulation, right? We're not opposed to that. It should have regulation.
It needs
Yes.
smart regulation.
It needs smart regulation.
Yeah.
It needs smart regulation. They didn't do it to help the businesses thrive. There's going to be a large number of businesses that are shut down and end because of this. Same as what happened when Prop 64 passed. So,
Yeah, a lot of hoops got to jump through. That's why, we want to help in any way we can. That's what we are looking to do, is hopefully sponsor a minority-owned business, or even women I'm so happy that we have women guests on the show. You're actually our first woman CEO on the show.
Thank you.
So we're going to have hopefully many more, and I love meeting more and more women in this space, and I'm starting to see how many women there are. You know, it's one thing to read about it and just say that they're only taking up about 30% of our CEO positions, but that's across the board in all industries. So they just include the cannabis industry as well. So women are smart. I mean, we got our first vice president woman, however you feel about the presidency, but we're taking strides, and the United States needs to take notice that women are smart, we're super capable, and we believe in peace, not war. So
we have a different skill set for sure. I think that it's more natural for women to relationship build rather than be in competition. You know, I don't mean to get like too sexist. Apologies to anyone that this isn't true for. I date someone who is very into relationship building, so it's not all men. But but there definitely is something that makes them be like, ooh, but even him, actually, I'll say, like, you know, they'll have their bicep challenges at work, you know, with the coworkers and stuff. Oh yeah, totally. Working out and like who's got more. I'm like, okay, you guys are cute. So there is just a natural need to compete at some level and somewhere, and some people it's more than others, and some people lack integrity. So that way, when they do it, is when it not quite right? Because I think you can have healthy competition.
Well, I think it's less about a natural desire to compete and more about being socialized to only be valuable if you're winning, you know? Because
I like that.
There are so many people who, you know, the way that they naturally are is complete opposite to the way that they were raised, and and you want to be what you've been told is proper, right? You want to be a man, you want to be, or not even just a man. I'm not a man, so I can't say. I've not been socialized in that way. But you know, I think that is really key, and that's part of why, you know, when you are in a cannabis or in any business, there aren't as many seats for minorities as there are for example, cis white men, and that's why so many women, so many people of color, queer people, you know, they don't feel that there are enough spaces, and so they need to be in that space themselves, and a lot of them don't feel like they can open that space for people who are like them because there's not enough and they don't want to be replaced.
Money is the biggest issue to access.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
White men in this country, and white people in general, myself included, have an easier time getting loans and have for the last 100 years. Again, going back to like where we talked about the impact of drugs on families generationally, if you don't get a loan, if your great grandfather wasn't able to get the loan for that house, like that impacts people on on so many different levels when you're not treated fairly in this country, and we haven't been in so long. And so when we talk social equity, that's part of it. It's not just about people who have been incarcerated because of this plant. It's acknowledging, and look, cannabis is highlighting social equity for the first time. Social equity is a term for the first time.
I first heard it in Long Beach, just saying.
I mean, hey,
I think they're one of the first people to have a program.
Well, and I'm really proud of it too. Yeah. We worked a very long time with the LBCA subcommittee and with the city, and to see them rolling out, you know, and look, we had to go to them and explain to them, hey, your system's faulty at first, and then we had to explain to them how. And when you work in government, you don't always know how the real world works, because there's a bit of a bubble there, both in income and in just like what you have access to, right? And that's one of the biggest problems too with government is great, you have grants, you have programs, you have funding. There's no navigation to those programs.
Wow, that's
and again,
so
it's on purpose.
true.
If you increase that barrier to entry, the people who are able to apply are the people who look just like you.
The first year we had a social equity program in Long Beach, and this was last year. So in 2020, 1 out of 78 applicants made it through. And the initial response to that first meeting with the representative from the city, who is not currently holding that position, the person who's holding that position we have much more hope for, But their response was they were the only ones that wanted it bad enough.
Wow.
The
it's
ignorance.
Quite subjective.
I was so glad I was muted. I had to go off camera too. I definitely needed a bong rip during that meeting.
Wow.
So you know, there's just like there's this ignorance, and when you don't, and so we had to really show them, and like the LBCA did such an amazing job, and Pam Swati there, she's amazing, she's incredible, she's actually my partner also on a nonprofit. We formed a nonprofit here to help with that navigation. That was something I wanted to do before I even knew I was going into cannabis. When I shared with her what my dream was, she was like, we have to do this now, and I was like, I just left my job and I'm starting a business and like a nonprofit in 5 years, I'm thinking, like, you know, that's realistic. And she's like, no, now. We need it now. And I was like, oh, okay. So I formed 2 businesses and a nonprofit last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing so much to help,
Do you
know,
sleep?
in different angles.
Sometimes.
And connecting so many dots here for me because, you know, all I know is what I know. And it's like so many people out there trying to navigate. We don't know what we don't know. And
Yeah.
having all of these other resources really will help open more doors for everyone within this space. So
There's always things to do. You know, I always tell people, you dream it, let's do it. And I'm so dead serious with that. The CannaBoss Babes, before anything else, is an entrepreneurial support platform. If anyone has an idea for something, let's do it. And even more so if it gives something a voice. Like what you were talking about gender earlier, that's something we hope to do by the end of the first half of next year, is have an art show that discusses. At first we thought, oh, it'll be like sex and different, like, you know, things. And we're like, no, wait a minute. There's an opportunity here. Gender. Ideas around gender.
Especially right now when they're being targeted by so much hostile legislation, it's really important to highlight, you know, trans and non-binary people in every space.
Yeah. Educate. And we have to educate people on why it's important to be respectful of people's chosen genders, right? Like, I think, and so we have it in our heads of like a little bit of a history lesson, you know, like pale pink used to be the color you'd put rich little boys in for their christening.
And kings used to wear high heels.
Right. So there's all these different things that where we really have to check ourselves, and it's a lack of awareness.
Well, I think gender historically is very similar to cannabis. Even if you look at the American continents where cannabis was growing and was used here for thousands of years, the gender binary is also just really a white European, white Christian conception. Like, there were so many different gender identities across the Americas when the Spanish came, and just like cannabis was no longer valued, the same thing with gender. It was actually, you have to be like us now. We don't do that. So
the arrogance and the disrespect, the arrogance of that's not like what I know, so it's uncivilized.
Savage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Savage.
Obscene.
What's really savage?
And it's funny because when they came to the Americas, for example, when they came to Tenochtitlan, what is now Mexico City, that was a larger and cleaner city than Paris was, but they were the savages, even though, I mean, I don't know what it
I'm
looked
pretty
like,
sure the plumbing in South America was better than in Europe, so, you know.
And they actually, like, took showers and cleaned themselves.
Right. Yeah.
We had to teach them that, like, hygiene is important.
Right.
Fascinating stuff.
Oh,
truly.
God. You're right. I'm thinking of like all the venereal diseases and stuff, right? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's really important to know your history, you know? Like, I get so nerdy. I'll sit there and I love watching things in other languages because I feel like they tell their stories a little differently, you know, than we tell their stories.
I will
if
watch
there's
a
good
foreign film.
translation.
Yeah.
But it's like I didn't watch it, but with Squid Games, I've heard the English translation is so off that it's like watching an entirely different show, which is also fascinating.
I've always wondered about that, especially even the news, right? Like the news. And you know, we won't go deep into 9/11.
You know, we got to get United States. Hopefully we have hope for this country, and we're doing what we can. Cannabis is the answer, guys.
It
That's
definitely,
what we're seeing.
It's an answer for
so
sure.
I think that
so much.
I do. I think that if people were, well, I think that fear is not the answer, and fear is the other thing they feed. And I think that cannabis helps to eliminate and alleviate some of those fears and insecurities. My personal experience, and that of almost 800 different people that I've spoken to now, is that it really helps you tune in and find your own purpose and what you're here for, and find your value. I think that, and that really helps with mental health, right? Like that ties in the mental health. One of the groups that our nonprofit has is a recovery with cannabis group, because people who are in traditional recovery programs, if you say you use cannabis, then you're usually not too welcome to the program, or you're looked at as in violation of the program. And that is not respecting the fact that this is a medicine for some people. So by giving them a safe space to come and commune, they can medicate, but still have that support that you need when you are going through some type of recovery, right? We need our community. We're communal people. Like I look at the Druids, I trip out on this all the time. Like the Druids and the ancient civilizations that relied on the oral tradition, and how anti-written they were initially. And there's something to it that I see now through all these is when you have it written, it's left to interpretation, versus when you hear it, you hear the tone, you see the intention, you can relive that moment through those people's stories. And our stories are what make us who we are. So
I actually recently found out the reason that St. Patrick's Day exists. Like, have you heard that story?
But share it with everybody
else. Well, okay,
yeah.
Well, I'm not Irish, and I'm not an expert here, but I did some Googling this year because I had no idea what St. Patrick's Day was. And apparently the story was that, like, an Englishman came to this area in Ireland and rid it of the snakes. And they don't mean literal snakes. They mean the Druids and the people who were indigenous to that region. And he came in there and said, goodbye. And that's what St. Patrick's Day is about.
I didn't know that.
Crazy.
There is, so, and then going back even further, dare we?
Please.
So the story of Adam and Eve and the serpent. The serpent was the Babylonian goddess Ishtar.
Oh, interesting.
The serpent's been representative of other cultures and other beliefs for a long time, in part because the serpent's been used in other cultures and other beliefs for a long time as being a wise animal. But yeah, that's, yeah.
It was definitely surprising.
Eradication of people who can continue the oral tradition in order to replace it with a written one that was read to them until they came to this country seeking freedom of their minds, right?
Yeah. And when you have a largely illiterate population, which historically has been most places, only one person can read, and they can say anything they want to you.
And now what's happened is we get stuck on headlines. We don't read the fine print. So we're doing it to ourselves.
Wow.
So
this is just getting deeper and deeper. One-liners, clickbait, bad media, fake news, like all of that.
Lots of propaganda.
It's really educating yourself. It's following the money, it's really, and then knowing, like, I've always felt about voting. I don't know if you have too, but other than Obama, I've always felt it's voting for the lesser of evils. Oh. I think he was the only one that I ever felt like really good about.
Oh yeah.
And even with him, the first election, I was nervous because I don't know you, but you sound better than the other one, right? Like,
that's what it always is.
We never really know, and so yeah, it's just really important to do your research and then also recognize that the agenda what the agenda is that you're going to be pushing forward. And there needs to be a balance. Like even here in Long Beach, Mayor Robert Garcia, and there's been some recall action, right? But initially, what he was able to do for the development of the city and the income was really good. But at a certain point, the negatives started creating too large an impact. And so, and that's where, that's why we vote every 4 years because sometimes it's not always about the individual. Sometimes it's about the agenda. because the faces change, but the agenda's always there. And there's this agenda and there's that agenda. And together, and you have to vote to like balance so one doesn't get too out of hand of the other. And it does.
I'd say it's been out of balance for almost the entire time the system has existed. But also at the same time, the system was put in place in order to keep certain people up and other people down. So actually, the system has never been broken. It is working exactly as it was written.
It's a play. There's characters, and it's a play, and it's like little marionettes.
Mm-hmm. We love the performance.
Right, we love the performance. We love to get caught up in the performance that makes us feel important.
Americans live for entertainment. Yeah.
Look at the reality TV that's not even reality anymore. It makes me sad. I can't watch it. I have a hard time with it. That's just not my thing. Right. Mainly because I've watched now this MTV generation that's been around our whole lives, right? And started fun as like videos, and then it turned into reality TV, and then everyone around me is acting like the reality TV, and I just... I mean, when the movie WALL-E came out, I can totally see how people end up fat on floaties, right? Like, I don't...
And can you imagine if we were having this conversation on marijuana? I mean, we're sober, and this is like, crazy.
I mean, I smoked on the way over, but... I always, like, that's me, and that's actually always been me. I've been accused of saying things because I'm high that I'm like, but I said that to you earlier today too. Like, that's one of the things about this industry where I found my voice is I'm not going back into a cage. Yeah. This is who I am. This is what I'm here for. And leading by example so that others can speak up about what's important to them. Like, I can be high or not. You're going to hear from me if I have something to say.
All right. Well, we'll be doing an after hours episode. We'll be rolling one up. Go follow us on Instagram, and you can see the behind the scenes, guys. But yeah, no, you're so smart, and you have so much insight, and I love hearing all these opinions. And yeah, yes, I think marijuana definitely does open up our minds to things. And I unfortunately did not smoke today. I do feel like smoking now, though, so I can get on her level. So if you guys want to donate to the cause, just hit that like button, hit the share on this video, and please just help us grow in that way, and we'd really appreciate it. And also check out our website. But I think that we talked about so much, and we could make 10 more episodes off of these few conversations we had. So thank you so much for joining us. Also, thank you for being here.
Thank you guys
She's
for
part of
me.
the nonprofit helping out as well, and so I'm excited to have more women around me. And again, I can't thank you enough. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, of course, it's an honor. Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap?
Like plug the gram.
We are up actually right now. We are up for nomination for Orange County Cannabis Awards Best Podcast. Oh. Voting is every day through December 2nd, so that just started yesterday.
How do we vote?
Go online to Orange County Cannabis Awards, or go to the CannaBoss Babes on Instagram. Our link is in the bio, or on mine, Ishqa the Boss Babe. But yeah, we're really excited. We've met so many wonderful, amazing people. I always feel like, we get to leave with a new friend.
Yes.
And so yay.
Yes.
And that's really what it's about is keeping these connections going, because we're so much stronger when we can like pool each other and have these. Mm-hmm. I mean, we wouldn't have had this conversation exactly the same way without, you know what I mean? Like, we all just add to it. And so I just feel like I've always felt like perspectives are like facets in a diamond. The more there are, the more brilliant it is. So that's really what it's about, is like, let's just really grow together.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Well said. Can't wait to see you again and see your new live audience show that's coming out soon.
Thank you. We'll definitely make sure you guys both have seats.
I want a ticket.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Look for us in the audience, guys.
We're still looking for sponsors. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely hit me up on the website. So, or DM, wherever. I get hit up everywhere. I respond.
All right, guys. It's been another episode of United Cannabis Club News. Peace out.